I was asked on Shabbos to give the Inyoni Gula Moshiach Shiur, and right away I said, of course, let me know which night. So he told me Sunday or Monday night. So I said, Sunday night I'm busy, but Monday night I can come by. I didn't realize that Monday night is Chavdal Teves. Of course, Chavdal Teves is the Yom Elula, is the yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe. So I said tonight is going to be a very easy one, because to find a connection with Chavdal Teves and Moshiach is very simple. Everyone knows that when the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya, with the Tanya they said that with this Tanya we're going to go to the Gula. And as it's brought down, Kemat, many siches, the Rebbe brings the famous Shalom. In Parshas Vayeshev, Shalom Kodesh writes that when it comes to the Meidim Hashana, when it comes to the Yom Tovim, there's always a connection between the Yom Tiv, of course the Yom Tov Midiraisa, and of course the Yom Tov Midirabanan. There's always a connection between the Moed Hashana and the Parshas Shavua. And the Rebbe connects Chavdal Teves with Parshas Shavua, Parshas Va'era. Parshas Va'era, in the beginning, Moshe Rabbeinu complains at the end of Parshas Shemais, Lama Reis Lama Mazeh, why have you mistreated Klal Yisrael? And the Eibishter tells him, Va'era el Avram, el Yitzchak, el Yaakov, I appear to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Bekel Shakai, in the name of Shakai, with the Gila of Shakai, Shmi Havaya Lene Daiti. But the level of Havaya, the Ovis were not Zeicha to receive. So we see that the idea of Parshas Va'era is the idea of Giloi, it's the idea of revelation. The Rebbe in another Sicha, Toshin and Aleph, brings that Shakai Shin Dalad Yud stands for the three Ovis. Of course, it's going on Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but also in Chassidus, there's also three Ovis. Shin goes on Shneir, goes on the Alter Rebbe, Shneir Zalman. Dalid goes on Deivber, Mzitcher Magid, and Yud goes on Yisro. So just like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, with their Avodah, were able to be Makabel, the Matan Torah, so too with the three Ovis of Chassidus, that Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, Mzitcher Magid, and the Alter Rebbe, as the Friedrich Rebbe said, they were the grinder. They were the founders and the foundation for Teres Chassidus. Va'era is spelled Vav Aleph Deish Aleph. If you switch around the first three letters, Va'er is light. The last Aleph is Rosh Teves for So Va'era says Va'era, Vav Aleph is light, and also the last Aleph is Rosh Teves of What are these two lights? These two lights, in Chassidus, is what the Alter Rebbe is all about. Shnei The Rebbe brings a Yam Shel Shleima. I don't know how many people know, where does this name Shnei come from? Anyone know? Raise your hands. The Rebbe brings a Yam Shel Shleima. The Yam Shel Shleima brings down, there was a machlekes, there was a child born, and there was a whole vikuach in the family, what to call this child. So some of the family wanted to call him Uri, and some wanted to call him Meir. And they came to the Rav, and the Rav said, being that both names represent light, so call him Shnei which means two lights. Zalman is not a Yiddish nomen, but Shnei is two lights. Why was the Alter Rebbe called Shnei Because the Alter Rebbe brought light in Nigla and Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe wrote from the Tziva of the Mezritcher Magid, he wrote the Shulchan Aruch. And of course, the Alter Rebbe also wrote the Tanya. Now, what was the Maila of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch over every other Shulchan Aruch? So I know in Yeshiva, at least the way it was in my days, is that we didn't really open up a Torah Beis Yosef Shulchan Aruch until we started learning Smicha. So we all know how to be mafalfel very well in the K'tzos, not be Miluyim, Mishav Shmaitza, but I don't know how many people actually take a Torah Shulchan Aruch and actually open up how Shulchan Aruch really works. I was once reading a essay from Rebbe Levin. He was writing how he feels that the way that the yeshiva system is set up, the way the Baruchim are learning, and we're not really learning a little bit of the Ilchasa, he feels that was very, very, it's not correct way of learning. It's not the time. I didn't come here to give a mussar how the Baruchim should be learning a little bit of the Ilchasa. But in Mitzvah Hashem, you're going to learn Smicha very, very soon. And you'll see in Smicha that we start with the Torah, and the Torah has a explanation called the Beis Yosef, and then there's the Darkei Moshe, and there's a whole Seder Masudar of how we get to the Beis Yosef, the Mechaber. Now, what did the Alter Rebbe do? The Alter Rebbe took all the Shulchan Aruch, starting from the Torah, with of course the Rishonim, and then the Achreinim, and then the Beis Yosef, and he brought everything together. And the Alter Rebbe told us how to paskin halacha l'maisa. But the Alter Rebbe didn't only tell us how to paskin halacha l'maisa. The Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, the Maila of the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch is, it's a Shulchan Aruch b'ta'amein. Just like the Rambam writes in his Akdama, that if you learn the Rambam, you really don't have to open up any Svarim. You can go straight from the Rambam, and you don't really have to open up anything else. Al derech zeh, by Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, the way that we're supposed to learn is the Alter Rebbe wanted to give us a geschmack in learning Shulchan Aruch. So we see that just like Parshas Va'era has the idea of Gilui, the two Giluim, like we explained, the letter of the word Va'era, Aleph, so too the Alter Rebbe brought two Giluim, the Gilui of Teres Achsidis and Teres Anigla. Now, what was the Maila? What exactly did the Alter Rebbe accomplish? What did he bring over his Rabbein, his Mezritcher Magid, and Rabbi Shlomo Baal Shem? The Rabbi Shlomo Baal Shem, his Teres Achsidis was very, very short. If you ever ask someone who never learned Teres Achsidis, and you ask him, no, Zaga Vort, he tells you a nice kurz Vort, a cute Vort here, a cute Vort there. The Alter Rebbe brought Teres Achsidis that it should be understood in the way of Teres Chabad, that we should understand it with our Chochmah Bina V'das. When the Mezritcher Magid passed away, there was a great vikuach amongst his Chassidim, what is the proper path to go? And the Alter Rebbe felt that it's his avodah to bring Chassidus in a way of Chassidus Chabad, in a way of understanding. The same thing with Tanya, is the Alter Rebbe took the most lofty concepts and brought this down in our Chochmah and Bina V'das that we can understand. And the same thing with Shulchan Aruch. The Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch brought, not the way we learn Shulchan Aruch, the last half hour of Seder, we rip through it, but if you really, really want to appreciate the Alter Rebbe, start from the Torah, and the Beis Yosef, and you go to Mechaber, and the Ramah, and the Shach, and the Taz, and you see how the Alter Rebbe's goiness, how Parsha the Alter Rebbe took all the different shittas, and just made it so clear. That's what's the ufta of what the Alter Rebbe did. So, again, just to recap, we find that Va'era is the idea of two Giluim. So too the Alter Rebbe was the idea of two Giluim. And the Alter Rebbe wanted to give us not only that we should have a way of learning Chassidus in a way of just Kabbalah Seil, but we should have a geschmack into actually learning and understanding what we're learning in Chassidus as well. And the Rebbe brings a very interesting order. I know everyone's learning here Samach Vov this year. So the Rebbe brings a very interesting order, the Chayra Astira in Samach Vov. When the Rebbe Rashab speaks about the idea of an Evet Pashut, he explains that an Evet Pashut has Tainig Ba'avidosai, he has pleasure in his Avodah, but the Nachas Ruach that he has is not a Nachas Ruach for himself. He has no Nachas Ruach for himself. His whole Nachas Ruach is all La'adena, is all for his master. Another place in Samach Vov, it says, the Rebbe Rashab says that the Evet Pashut, the Aveda of the Evet Pashut is, and he has only bittul. He has no tainug, he has anything. His whole, the ultimate Aveda is that he's an Evet Pashut, that he has no simcha and he has nachas ruach. He's totally bottle. He has ein mokum mitzius mahus b'fnei atzmei klal. So the Rebbe asks in Ha'ara, if you want to bring out the mile of Evet Pashut, first of all, it's a stira. One place you're saying the Evet Pashut is that he has tainug, but his tainug is all the tainug of the Odin. And now you're saying in another place that what's the ultimate level of an Evet Pashut? It's not that he has his own Aveda, not that he has his own tainug, but he's no bittul. He's totally he has nothing to him. He's no metzias at all. So the Rebbe answers and says it's very pashut. Based on what we just explained, that the Aveda of the Alter Rebbe was, or the Uftu I should say, of the Alter Rebbe was, is that he wants to bring, first of all, Shulchan Aruch, he wants to bring Teres HaNigla, that it should be in a way, understand what you're saying, understand what you're learning, come out with something both like a geschmack. And the same thing with Teres HaChassidus, shouldn't only be in Chassidus, like we say, Tzaddik b'menaseh yichya. Atikri yichya lebechaya. What does that mean? That means that before the Alter Rebbe, how connected we were to the Rebbe, or to the Chassidim, they were to their Rebbe, that was their emunah. The Alter Rebbe didn't want that. The Alter Rebbe wanted that we should have a geschmack in what we learn, not only just because their Rebbes had a verstand, so we're connected to the Rebbe, so therefore we have our emunah and we have our geschmack as well. That's not a real geschmack, and that's a little bit of a burnout. If a person is going to have only Kabbalah so like a robot, but not have a geschmack in what he's learning, or not have a geschmack in what he's doing, eventually he's going to burn out. So what comes out from the end of the Sikha over here is that the Kabbalah Soil is a very, very extraordinary avodah. It's something which is indispensable. A person must have Kabbalah Soil in order to succeed in life and to be called a Chassid. But it has to be also in a way of Chassidus Chabad. It has to be in a way of understanding. And the Rebbe, I'll just bring a few nekudas, what the Rebbe explains in the Parshas Vayir and Tashon and Aleph, beautiful sikha, long sikha, I'll just point out different nekudas, is that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are compared to Rabbi Yisrael, Baal Shem Tov, Mesut Magid, and the Alter Rebbe. Where do you see by the Ovis? Where do you see the inyan of Torah? Of course, all the Ovis personified Torah. But when you think about the Ovis who personified Torah, B'Shleimusa, that's Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu and the Alter Rebbe both personified and both exemplified the idea of Torah. Now, just like it was through the Aveda of Yaakov, of course, the Shvatim, the Hemshech of Yaakov, we were able to actually receive Matan Torah, so too it's with the Alter Rebbe's Torah and the Alter Rebbe's Ufta, what he accomplished in Chassidus. Through that, are we able to actually go and bring Moshiach. I'll just conclude with a few nice stories. Of course, this is Gula Moshiach. So, as the Rebbe concludes that Sikha in Toshon Aleph, Ma'aseh B'Poel, the Rebbe explains that the hero over there is that every person has to be Moisev in the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus. Of course, in Tanya, And in the Kutei Teira, the Rebbe brings at the end of the Sikha that also Noshim, even though we know a woman, Noshim are not mechuyev in certain parts of Teira, but when it comes to Limudat Teira, B'hilchas HaTzichas land, they are mechuyev. So the end of that Sikha, the Rebbe speaks about Teira B'Payel, that we have to be Moisiv in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe's Teiras. Just two stories I was thinking on the way here, which we could really see how Moshiach is alive by certain people. There was once a very big Rav. He had two things. He kocht in two things. Two things. What were the two things? Number one is he used to speak about Moshiach, and number two he'd give gemachs, he would give a gemilas chesed. So there was once a Yid, and he came to the Rav. He tells the Rav, I would like to borrow some money. I have to make a chasana, and I would like to take a loan from the gemach. He says, no problem. When are you going to pay back? He says, when Mashiach comes. He says, I'm not giving you the halva. He says, okay, you believe in Mashiach. Mashiach is so real by you, and the fact that you don't believe that I'm going to pay you back, but Mashiach shows that Mashiach B'chlal is not real to you. Another story I was thinking, I had a Zayda, his name was Rabbi Yitzchak Nemes. My Zayda, when he came out, he was very, very ibrigem to the Rebbe. Whenever the Rebbe would come out with a mitzvah, he would take it to heart, even though he was in business. But when it came to mitzvah tefillin, mitzvah kashrus, there's many, many stories of my Zayda being going beyond the letter of the law into Mesiras Nefesh of the Rebbe's Mivtzayim. But there was a Yid, it was a long story how he met this Yid. He was living with a goyta, he was living with a shikta. In one of these Indian countries with Mamash Avodah Zarah. And my Zayda was slowly getting to know him and being mekar him to Yiddishkeit. And one day, his goyish wife calls my Zayda and says there's something very fishy going on with my husband, and he has a suitcase, and she's very, very weirded out. And my Zayda says, something doesn't make sense. I know your husband. He's a good Jew. He's a good person. Anyway, he finds the next opportunity to speak to him. And he says, by the way, what's with this suitcase and you have under your bed? And he says, what do you mean, Rabbi? You told me that Mashiach can come any second. So I have my suitcase ready with my change of clothes ready to greet Mashiach. It shows you sometimes, you don't need to be like we said at the end of we gave the example in Samach Vov of Evet Pashut. Sometimes you see that even by very pashut people, Mashiach is something which is very, very real. So Yiratzon, we should take Chavdal Teves, take it seriously, take it to heart, take the Alter Rebbe's Teiras to heart, and understand Alter Rebbe had Mesiras Nefesh Mamish to spread Teres Chassidus, and of course everyone knows the Master, and the Alter Rebbe was arrested twice, and the Mesiras Nefesh that the Alter Rebbe had, and the Alter Rebbe, we know the famous story that when Mr. Shemagin and the Rabbi Yisrael came to the Alter Rebbe in prison and asked him, no, why did I deserve this? He told him, because there's a Gzeirim Omayla that you're being Mefish Teres Chassidus. So what did the Alter Rebbe say? When I come out, should I stop? He said, no, Adarabbe, you have to spread the well springs of Teres Chassidus, and that's what the Alter Rebbe's his whole life, and that's, of course, all the Rebbeim's, their life was all spreading Teres Chassidus, was all for one purpose, to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu. We should be Zeicha very, very soon. The Kar of Mamish Begula Mitzvah Shleima.